Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Thursday. It is March the 6th. We are rolling live right now on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. We are available on YouTube, and we must have cracked something. Somebody is not mad at us over at YouTube. Picked up 500 subscribers in like 2 days. So for all of you that are following on YouTube, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate that. And feel free to like the show. Feel free to subscribe, share it with your friends, and so on. Really appreciate that. It's a big deal. Actually, it's kind of interesting to see this because we've been watching for years. I've had as many views on YouTube since we started this program as we get in Rumble in like 1 week. Literally, a week of Rumble views is about the same as 2 years on YouTube. That's how screwed up these things are. And I get these emails from these folks that are trying to sell me stuff. They're like, hey, have you thought about doing something with YouTube? Like, it's your fault. No. YouTube has had us pretty well suppressed, and maybe someone decided that we're not a danger anymore. That'd be kind of interesting. All right, we got a lot to cover today. We're going to go down the rabbit hole on a bunch of stuff. The biggest thing, I think, is $20 billion over at the EPA. This was something we touched on a little while ago. It was something we brought up and said that there was a like gold bars getting kicked off the Titanic, actually a Project Veritas sort of reveal. And it led Lee Zeldin, who's the administrator, to go and look for it. And they've got some details on what's going on there. So I think that's actually very telling. We had a Supreme Court decision that was also pretty nutty yesterday. Unfortunately, we saw that the squishy part of the court, anybody who claims that this is a far-right court is clearly not paying attention. So we're going to go into the details of that decision and the fact that foreign aid is now going to be unfrozen, or at least that's the claim, but there's no real deadline on how that gets done, and it's not real obvious how the judiciary is going to make that happen. Let's see. Department of Education could get axed today. That's an actual thing. So we're going to get into all those pieces as well. And if you're seeing me on the screen and you're like, hey, Kyle, do you not wash your face at night or in the morning? No, I did not. We had Ash Wednesday yesterday, went to church, got the ashes. And even though I roll around on a pillow all night, I still got a little bit of ashes on my forehead. So that's what's going on there. There's a smudge. If you don't know a Catholic, ask a Catholic what the story is. Or if you don't know what it is, ask a Catholic. You'll find one. All right. We got a new sponsor that I'm pretty excited about. Let me preface this sponsor with a little bit of more information. We'll give them a little bit more time than I normally do because kind of a big deal for me to find a company like this. The company is called Undertac. Okay. And this is how it went down. The folks that sell our program went out and they said, hey, Kyle, would you be interested in a underwear sponsor? And the answer was like, I don't know. I've been wearing the same type of underwear for 16 years. I'm kind of fixated on doing what I do. Ever since I joined the military, I started wearing essentially Ranger panties. These are like an athletic short, but they're like 2 little layers of mesh. I said, that's what I wear. So I'm not really interested in wearing anything else generally, but send them, whatever. What the hell? Send it to me. I get them in the mail. And when they sent them over, I ended up sending a picture to Sean Ryan Show's producer. And I was like, hey, dude, someone just sent me some underwear in the mail. And he goes, what do you think? And I was like, I'm going to put them on. What do you think? And he was like, you should wash them. So we tried them on, and I wore them for like 6 hours the first day, and they were great. And I went like, holy crap. Like this, I might actually change what I wear. So that's where we're coming from with this. And if you guys understand how it works, then maybe it will help you understand why this is the kind of sponsor that we would take on, the right kind of background. So undertac.com, the promo code Kyle20 is how you get the deal. When it comes to gear that can handle anything, there is no better choice than Undertac. I'm starting to believe them. I like the infantry model, by the way. They have a recon model. It's not quite as much comfort, but it's good for athleticism. It's designed and tested by elite special forces teams in Africa's harshest conditions. My buddies served in Africa in special forces teams. There are some unique challenges there. Undertac is made to perform when it matters most. Whether you're navigating tough terrain or you're just tackling your day, their underwear, socks, and shirts are made to keep you dry, comfortable, and mission ready. I can attest to the comfort. I can attest to the dry. I haven't had to do any missions in them yet, but I imagine they're pretty good. When it comes to premium materials, they use things like Modal. It's a 50% moisture wicking. It allows you to pull more moisture out than cotton. Again, I'm used to wearing synthetic stuff. This stuff is great. Undertac offers a tactical performance that goes beyond the basics. They have ultra comfortable boxer briefs made. They're American-made battle weave merino socks, so you can get special socks there. I haven't got the socks yet, so I can't attest to that. But I'll tell you, the boxers are legit. They've got hoodies. They've got everyday carry type T-shirts. They are rugged enough for anything, and they're going to be comfortable enough for your everyday wear. It's Undertac, UNDERTAC.com, undertac.com. The promo Kyle20 gets you 20% off. If you sign up there and give them an email, they'll give you 18% off. If you want 20% off, you just use my name and the 20. So it's Undertac20 site-wide, whether you're gearing up for an adventure or you're just doing your everyday life. They also support some veteran-run organizations that are fighting human trafficking. Some pretty neat stuff there. Check them out. Pretty cool to get new people coming out and joining the program, and pretty cool to find underwear that I would wear after 16 years of the same thing. So that's what we're getting into. Let's get into all the crazy news stuff and maybe the continued meltdown of the Democrat Party, which they are continuing unabated. I'm not mad at them, but it is fun to watch. All right, so let's start off with the kind of more mundane news. The Donald Trump administration is ready to abandon my children. This is an opinion piece that came out 2 days ago. I had it queued up. I thought I might run on it. The Trump administration is very mean and very bad, and they're going to attack disabled or otherwise abled children. This is a push from MSNBC, so it's kind of fun to start from the farthest side. Attacks on disabled Americans and policy that we rely on are at the core of so much of MAGA culture. This is the editorial claim from someone named David Perry. He's a journalist and a historian, in his own words. Talks about how his son, his name is Nico, and he had a developmental therapist sitting in the room. Nico is autistic and has Down syndrome, and he communicates with sounds and signs and tech and actions, but it requires a lot of work, and it goes on. And it's this like all about me sort of thing, right? It's all about my individual needs. I get it. If you have a disabled child, that is going to be the focus of your life. That is actually the right thing. If you have a disabled child, you should spend so much time thinking about and wondering, how do you make your child's life ideal? There's nothing wrong with that. But that has very little to do with what we should be doing with the federal government. The federal government is so far removed from what your child is about, and it is so inefficient when it comes to how it might be able to help you or your child. If you're advocating on behalf of the federal government solving the problem of the person sitting in your living room, then you don't know what the federal government is. You're not much of a historian. It's troubling to me that these people think that the solution is the biggest possible hammer. And I guess that's why they keep getting destroyed. Like, they just make these illogical arguments. They are in chaos. They're not strong. And although I don't mind Democrats losing, I really don't, it's actually not good for America. It's really not good for this country. Let me make the argument to you that if we have two functional, if we're only going to have two parties, again, it comes down to the shape of the building, and it's always the most notable when we have these State of the Union addresses. It is supposed to be a collegiate environment. Multiple people coming from different perspectives, but looking roughly in the same way. More and more what we are seeing is that we have two incompatible forces. And so it is a winner takes all. It is a zero-sum game. This is not good for America. It's terrible. And it's not even the way that our system is designed. We weren't necessarily even designed to have political parties. The fact that we have them should mean that these political parties basically agree on what American values are, and then they fight on how to get to those values. How do we best achieve the ends that we all want? Is it more government? Is it less government? Is it lower tiers of government that exists at the closest level, at the local level? Should it be some at the federal level? These are like reasonable discussions. But we can't even have these discussions right now because the people that are involved in the fight are actually making the argument that basically, if you do not agree with me, if you do not see things as I do, then you are immoral, you are a bad person, and therefore you should be castigated and thrown out. You shouldn't even be tolerated in polite society. And the folks that are articulating that viewpoint are getting more and more cartoonish, I think. Like, that's the only way I can see it. You've seen more politicians. Now, politicians, I guarantee you, have always sworn. They've always spoken like real people because they're regular people. But they were meant to sort of project an ideal civic discussion and debate. I'm going to show you a Rand Paul video a little bit later where he's talking about, like, why can we not use some public funds to go and investigate the links between autism or disprove the links between autism and some of the vaccines that have been out there in the world? Why can't we not just go out there and do that? And he says it in this like very calm, rational, articulate manner. And then you have the alternative, the Cory Bookers and the Maxine Waters. I'm just going to touch all the different age brackets. The Jasmine Crockett's, who are cartoons. They're fools. And they play their people for fools. And that's not even their real personality. I've got an Eric Swalwell video showing the same thing. It's so off-putting, and it's a loss. So here is Shermichael Singleton, I think is his name. He's on CNN. He's one of the other voices of reason. They are doing a good job at CNN of pointing out how the party that CNN otherwise would endorse is terribly off, like they are losing. So they're putting this sort of like opposition person. It's almost always 1 against 5. And that one has no problem. It reminds me of that scene from The Matrix where Neo is fighting all 3 agents and he's just like one-handed and he's like texting on his phone or whatever. And he's just beating the crap out of 3 guys because he doesn't even need to block or pay attention. That's how easy this is for them because they're making it easy. And they're putting these unhinged leftists that are saying like cartoonish things. They are cardboard cutouts of arguments. And it doesn't matter whether it was Joe Biden or whether it was Tim Walz doing it. It doesn't matter whether it's the people that are currently there. They're really bad for their own party. They're irrelevant. And so sure, Michael Singleton's making that argument here. So this is kind of the premise, I think, of all of it. And we're going to get into sort of the piece about the Department of Education. They're having the wrong debate. It's not about what's good for me and my emotionality and I have a child who has special needs. It's like, okay, that's your problem. Yes, it is your problem. And it becomes the problem of your neighbors and your community because they should take that on. We had a nonverbal autistic girl that lived across the street from us. When I was living in New Mexico. And you learn to have a lot of empathy for both the parents and the child, and you learn to know who that person is, even though I didn't initially have any buy-in, because I didn't know who she was. She came and banged on the door when we first moved in. We didn't know anything about her. We didn't know who she was. The door opens. My wife looks out, like, who's at the door? And this girl just walks in because her uncle used to live in the house. We bought the house from her uncle. And so she rolled right into our house and we're like, whoa, like what is happening here? Mom comes running in right after. Now you have 2 unwelcome guests in your house. And then you start talking to them and you go, okay, who are these people? Well, they're friendlies, right? Husband works for the Border Patrol. He ended up being one of my favorite people that I live next to. He's probably one of my favorite neighbors I've ever had. His daughter is a sweetheart, but she's troubled. She's got challenges. She would have to wear headphones because the noises and the sound were, really disruptive to her ability to think and her ability to communicate. But she's a kid like any other. And she has, people she loved and she has things she wants to do and she wants to listen to music. She wants to climb up on the brick wall and walk around in circles, do things that all kids want to do. She's maybe developmentally delayed, but she's a person. And so your community gets involved in that. The federal government has no business in dealing with my buddy Ramon's daughter. It's just not a problem that needs to be handled by a government that is 2,000 miles away and will never know what she's about and her unique and individual needs. So these arguments are being made that there's this mean Republican party and they're making themselves irrelevant. And this is why this CNN clip to me, it just hit. It's like, yeah, you're irrelevant because you're not even talking about things. And at the same time, you're also so distracted by illogical arguments like men can be women, which is a real thing that if you are a hard leftist partisan agenda marcher, you're going to run down a line that immediately makes you irrelevant to normal people. And so I'll show you what that chaos looks like because I got a Piers Morgan clip from that. Okay, CNN clip first. This is the overall premise and argument.
The Democratic Party itself is frankly an irrelevant political party. They don't have a message. Their policy positions have left cities across this country in shambles. I mean, even last night, let's just think about this for a minute. The president highlighted DJ, the young kid who's dealing with cancer survivor. They didn't even have enough decency to stand and applaud. He highlighted the mother whose daughter was killed by an illegal immigrant. They didn't stand and applaud. He talked about law enforcement, not the bad guys, but the ones who are doing good work every day across this country, keeping our cities safe. They didn't stand and applaud. It appears to me that the Democratic Party, in my personal opinion, is a party that is in chaos right now. They have no idea which direction to go.
Michael, with all due respect, you think Democrats are going to...
Oh, absolutely.
Wait, let me say this. You think Democrats should applaud Donald Trump when he talks about law enforcement?
No, but a kid with cancer.
Stop. Let me just, no, excuse me. In that very chamber where Donald Trump's goons tried to harm the people that were sitting there and applauding Donald Trump, you want Democrats to take advice from Donald Trump about law enforcement?
It's not about taking advice, Julie. Some things should just simply be above politics.
Right.
And those are three instances where Democrats could have simply applauded.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to like the president to say these are good things.
This president is cutting funding for childhood cancer. You want to know what he's cutting funding for? The NIH. The CDC, he's got a wacko as the head of HHS. And you want to talk about it. I'm sorry, I'm very happy for that kid. I'm very happy for that kid. I'm glad that his lifelong dream came true and he became, a cop or whatever he wanted to become. But the bottom line is that all it does is accentuate the horrors that Donald Trump is imposing on kids with cancer.
Democrats seemed pathetic and they seemed petulant in their behavior last night. And if they think that's going to help them go into midterms next year, I say keep going.
But what about Yeah, keep going with this. But also, it's actually not good for America. It's not good for the country to have a dysfunctional half where you're going to have this group that just cannot look around and say, hey, we're losing because we're not in touch with the people that we're supposed to be representing. She's a Democrat strategist. She's the co-founder of something called Lift Your Voices, whatever the hell that is. It's kind of irrelevant to me. I don't actually care. What I know is that you take that and then you run it to their influencer market. And by the way, I despise the concept of influencers. I hate that there are people out there who basically are famous for being famous. This started for me like the reality TV people. This is the Kardashian model. And then they end up having a lot of money, a big microphone to speak from, and like no ideas. A lot of times I get these emails and people will say like, we want to get this person on your show because they're an influencer in this space. And I just delete all the emails. They're all garbage, folks. I really do. I'm very particular about who I want to interview because I don't want to talk to people that are famous for being famous. And I definitely don't want to talk to people that are selling themselves to me about knowing something. And oftentimes it's just like they say like, has this many followers. I don't care. What do you know? Why are you in a position to know it? What sort of information have you gleaned from your life experience? And what is that experience? And is it going to be useful that other people can both relate to it and learn from it? I want to know about that. I want to know people that had hard times and they have a message that they came out of it with. I don't care that you have, 300,000 followers somewhere and like, blah, 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 blah. Like it's awful to me. Anyway. So we're really careful about that. But one of the people that is that person is this woman named JoJo from Jersey. She's horrific. When you take the Democrat strategy that lady was talking about, where, by the way, you notice she's still fixated on January 6th. Like, how do you just not get over that? Okay. You fixate on a grievance and you take all these illogical ideas that cannot be combined into any coherent thought, and then you put them into an empty vessel, like an influencer type. You end up with this chaotic discussion, which is just, you can humble these people with just asking a simple question. Hey, what is a woman? Matt Walsh tapped into something so brilliant and special. What he did was expose that we're going to go to the root of the most simple question. What is a woman? It is 4 words that will derail leftist lunatics. Not people that you could agree with and say, hey, we just disagree on values or we disagree on the way to get to the same values. There are people like that. And I think that more and more those independents, they don't even have a choice. They're like, dude, I don't even like Donald Trump. I don't like the idea of saying anything. They're not going to identify as being a Republican. And at the same time, they can't line up with this craziness because it's just ill. And by the way, they're all like women leftists, it seems like, that seem to be pushing this agenda. It's that unhinged feminine. I haven't talked about it in a while, but it is a thing that I keep seeing. There's a masculine and there's a feminine. And I don't mean male and female. I mean sort of the caring, empathetic, the ethos that falls into that line. And then there's the rationality and sort of the logic. And these things are kind of at odds with each other and they have to be remain in balance. The Democrat Party doesn't have it in balance. They are out of balance. And we had just like it created a chaos. I've got a really funny video of which we're going to do a little look back on. Yesterday, we did the news coverage that was in print of the State of the Union of Donald Trump versus the last Biden one. I got the video version of it because I found it. It's pretty fun. So, okay. Anyway, JoJo from Jersey making whatever best argument she can, getting easily derailed by Piers Morgan, who is a lefty as well. Like he hates guns. He doesn't understand things about America, but he's trying to tack towards the middle to be relatable. And this is what it does. It just derails this woman. And then listen to the chaos. We can only listen to it for so long.
Jojo, I'm going to ask you a question, a simple question.
What are you talking
about? Give me a simple answer, Jojo. What is a woman, Jojo?
Yes. Well, a woman is whatever. If you feel like you're a woman, then you're a woman. I know I'm a woman. I identify as a woman.
So if I feel like a woman right now, I'm a woman?
I'm not threatened.
Hang on.
What would you feel like?
If you feel like you're a woman, it's your identity, sure.
So hang on, just to be clear.
I'm sorry, what's a man? Piers, what's your definition of a man? I'm
to
a
be
woman.
clear,
What's your
just to be
definition
clear,
of a man?
So just to be clear, if I feel like a woman right now, I am a woman. Is that your position?
And if you feel like you are a woman, Piers, and you want to walk around identifying as a woman, it is not my prerogative to tell you that you
Am
cannot.
I a woman?
I identify as a woman. What is
Am
a
I a
man,
woman?
Piers? What is a man?
Oh, a man is
Donald
an
Trump
adult
a man?
human.
Can I,
That's it.
Pierce, can I jump
Male.
into that question?
Adult
An adult human.
male.
It gets worse from there, and she just argues this point. It is just so simple that you could just answer the question, because everybody has known for all of reality, until you have this artificial construct, until you are living on this scaffolding that is so rickety, that simple discussion will derail you. And I'm going there because the Department of Education is on the list and could literally be axed by executive order within the next 24 hours. That's something that could go on. It's causing people to be derailed, but they're not asking the right questions. This is from NPR the other day, and I thought this was quite interesting. Rural schools in Alaska are crumbling. The state is likely the culprit. I read this and I couldn't understand how they didn't see the same problem that I saw. Nearly 24 children in the small village of Skeetmoot, Alaska, Skeetmoot maybe, arrive for school each morning in a small brown building that's on the verge of collapse. Why are you letting your kid go into a building that's on the verge of collapse? Is this just theatrical writing, or is it literally going to fall down? And if it's really going to fall down, are you seriously putting your kid in a building that looks like it's going to fall down? How many of us were kids and you'd make a fort and your parents would be like, no, you can't go in that fort anymore. Like, you're not an engineer. You make bad choices. It needs some baling wire to hold those things up. I remember making forts out of pallets. Do you ever have those? You prop up a bunch of pallets and you just lean them against each other, and it was like one good strong wind gust from dropping it on your head. And you're putting like heavy things, whatever the heaviest crap is, above your head because you're a child and you don't know any better. You're going to let your kids go into an unstable structure that's been falling apart? Why? What's wrong with you? For every year, for the last 19 years, the local school district has asked the state for money to help repair a leaky roof. But again and again, the state said no. So what did these people do about it? That's what I want to know. Imagine that you are in a community and there's only just a few people. Imagine if one of my neighbors had a leaky roof. I can imagine this. It's not that hard to imagine. And they were petitioning for state funds or federal funds to fix their leaky roof. At some point in time, wouldn't it be the responsibility of the people in the community? This is why you cannot have government solve the problem. It's too far away from you. It doesn't care. The people that care are in your community. I'm reminded of that every time I go into a church that is not well connected. And in fact, the one that we go to out in the kind of rural area we have, it's very disjointed. And it bothers me because there's not like a big sense of community there. It's not people that look over and say, I know what your problems are and I won't let you fail. But my neighborhoods are almost always like that. Everywhere I've moved in the last, let's say, 8 years, my wife and I have made a concerted effort to go out and know who our neighbors are. I always told you that was the solution to this problem. Go and meet your neighbors. We would go meet our neighbors. We would talk to them and we would find out what it is that they needed. And sometimes you're in a position to help. I can assure you that if one of my neighbors had a leaky roof and asked for 19 years for someone to fix it, at some point in time, me and the boys are going up on the roof and we're going to take our tools and do it. I've done Habitat for Humanity. I've helped re-roof. You could do a roof in 2 days if you really had to, especially if you had some buddies to help you out. And if we're just patching a leak, this might be something really, really easy. Why are we not out there doing that? Or we could raise the money to pay a roofer to go do it. The people that are closest to you are going to care about the problem most. The people that are furthest away will care about it the least. The Department of Education, this nebulous concept out of Washington, D.C., does not care a rat's about kids. They care about their own stupid jobs. And they are stupid jobs because they're an administration. They're an administrator that has nothing to do with the mission anymore. They no longer are in touch with the mission of educating children and trying to get the top tier education. The only people that care about that are the children and the parents and the people that are going to deal with the parents and the children. You know, the people that are in that community. It's the stupidest thing ever. And so what you want to do is you want to give your money. This is the Democrat position right now. This is a leftist position to say government is the solution, like it's a god. They want to give money to the thing that is furthest away, have a bunch of people who are paid, by the way, so it costs money to do this, process this money, make a determination of where the money should go, and then reallocate that money out. And it's going to be full of all kinds of corruption, as you're going to find out, because some of that money is going to get siphoned off to go to other pet projects that have nothing to do with the original mission set. It's horrific and stupid. They're crying about window panes that are being cracked under heavy snow. They're talking about a wall beginning to buckle. They show a picture in this that says that the foundation is unstable. There's a guy who's out there in the crawl space who's documenting it. And it's been going like this for 25 years. This idea that someone else is going to come and save you is not American. It is not an American position that I will just wait until some nebulous concept that is far, far away will come and save me. That didn't exist for most of America. Mostly in this country, people solve problems themselves, and they did so with their neighbors. It's why we look at the Amish and we go like, man, that's awesome, isn't it? They can raise a barn in one day. Why is that? Because a bunch of people working together. How many times have we heard this expression? Many hands make light work. Teamwork makes the dream work. It's a joke when you're in the military. This is the way you say things. And yet it turns out it actually works. When you have a functional squad, when you have people that are aligned on the same mission and they all understand what's at stake, what needs to be accomplished, then they go do it. We're like rediscovering rationality and the way that things actually work in reality. And that's crazy to me. It really is. It's crazy and sad because we've lost a lot of ground by waiting for this to happen. But if they want to keep losing, they're going to keep losing. I'll do the EO in just 1 second. Let's talk about something that's got me charged up. Obviously, I am crushing coffee right now, and I think I took most of the pot this morning. I started at about 5:20. I gave my wife an extra hour to sleep in. So maybe some of you are in the same boat. Maybe some of you need that little extra pep in your step. So here you go. blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. Save yourself 20% when you make the order there. We're about to put you in charge, put you in touch with something that will change the way you start your day. Blackout Coffee isn't just coffee. It's a wake-up call. It's that call to rise and grind. Yeah, we grind here every day. We do. We have a mill. Push harder. Never compromise on what you stand for. It's not your average cup of joe. It is a bag of blackout coffee with roasted for purpose, packed with flavor, fueled by the kind of values that built the country. What are we talking about here? Grit, self-determination, right? Refusal to back down. You know, people who don't wait for the government to come give you stuff. It's not just how they make the coffee. They're making a statement here. Blackout Coffee steps up, adding warriors to give you your order faster than ever. Nothing you hate more than putting an order in and then forgetting when you're going to get it and it's showing up and you're like, I didn't even order this. Oh, yes, I did. Okay, so when you hit the order now button, you know your coffee's going to be coming in fresh and ready. It is ready to fuel your next move, whether you're powering through your daily grind, whether you're chasing down big goals, whether you're refusing to settle for mediocrity and government performance. Blackout Coffee's got your back. Don't just drink coffee, drink Blackout. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. Use our coupon code KYLE for 20% off the first order. It's the coffee that doesn't just wake you up. It fires you up. We are pretty fired up here. They even have a Let's Go on here. This is their script. So I read what they give me and I throw my own little additions in. They have a Let's Go in, which is in fact the name of our transitional song called Let's Effing Go. Go figure. All right. How about Let's Effing Go about getting rid of the Department of Education? Can we just do this? Nothing would make me happier. Department of Education executive order could be issued as soon as today. So saith CBS News. From their mouths to God's ear. Donald Trump is expected to issue an executive order as soon as Thursday, directing Education Secretary Linda McMahon to start the process of dissolving this stupid Department of Education. They don't call it stupid, but I do. Sources can confirm details of Wall Street Journal report, first reporting the news that they are in fact accurate, and the Journal saw a draft vision of this executive order. More on the executive order in a second, because while Donald Trump is getting tied up in all these legal fights, he's tying up resources in legal fights. I want you to consider this when we talk about the Supreme Court decision in a moment. Just keep it in your head. I don't actually think it's an accident. I don't think that they didn't know what they were getting into. And some of this comes from the fact that we're looking at Stephen Miller being one of the White House counsels, one of the advisors to the president on this stuff for policy. Stephen Miller is a lawfare guy to the point where he has had lawsuits that were challenged that they knew they would lose, right? With the America First Legal Foundation or the America First Legal Council. They were out there losing lawsuits on purpose to set precedent for things that they know they're going to win this time around. They are tying up a lot of resources with this. Dismantling the Department of Education has long been a goal of Republicans dating back to the Reagan administration. Holy moly. So what are we about? 40 years after, 45 years after, we might actually get the thing that people always wanted, getting rid of one of these useless government departments. Now, remember, Ronald Reagan said there's nothing closer to eternal life on earth than a government program or something to that effect. And it's true. Like, they create inefficiency, then they justify an existence, and it upsets people that want to get rid of it because now they have a job. The self-licking ice cream cone doesn't have the job of completing the mission. They're not educating anybody. The Department of Education runs 0 schools. It doesn't run any schools. It administrates money and gives out policy and tries to set political agendas that should be set as close to the human beings that are receiving them as possible. Yes, look at this. This is why I like you guys. Check this out. You're seeing right there on the screen, who is it? YouTube, is it YT Rules 35 in our chat? Said Spicer versus Biden. This is exactly one of those precedents that was set up. And I mentioned it just kind of briefly. You guys are dialed in. You're a much more educated audience. And I watch the chat before we get started every morning. If you guys have never joined our chat over on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin, highly recommend you jump in, even if it's before the show. If you get a moment to pop in and create a username over on Rumble to join us, what you'll see is discussions that are not necessarily what's happening on the program. They are discussions that you all are monitoring, and it is deeper and wider than most people anywhere are aware of. If you walked out into your neighborhood and talked to like your average person that's living in America, they do not know the things that are being discussed in our chat every day. It's truly awesome to watch. Okay, so what I'm getting at is that the Department of Education doesn't have any reason to exist. It hasn't for a long, long time. It's divorced from the mission set that you would expect a Department of Education to do. You'd think that it'd be running a school, but it can't. There's no charter for that. So when we're talking about these people going out there and spending our money carelessly, it's because they don't know who you are and they don't care. It's why having more administrators is worse. And that's what we've seen grow since the 80s, since my time, since I was a kid. We've seen schools have spent more money per capita on students, and they've got worse outcomes. The only way that happens is you don't actually add teachers or resources that are going to affect the actual mission set. What you do is you add bloat and people that are going to oversee the administration of funds and policy and other crap that doesn't actually do anything. And some of it comes down to this like fundamental understanding of what it is that our government is supposed to do. The local governments are meant to administer the most local policies, but what they are not meant to do is interfere with federal priorities. There are things that we do need a federal government for. Let's be real about that. Things like the border, things like mutual defense, things like making sure that interstate commerce can exist. There probably is a space in the world for the Department of Transportation, although it should be very, very, very small at the federal level because every state has their own. What you need is basically to say, how many miles of road do you have? What's your population look like? What's the amount of traveled over there? Okay, got it. Here's the amount of resources we're going to send from the federal government to be able to make interstate commerce happen. And that commerce almost always happens because of trucks. Outside of that, I don't need a lot of it. Are they maintaining the railways? It turns out there's railway companies. Okay, interstate commerce should be the narrow definition. These Democrat mayors, these Democrat politicians locally, I've got a Tim Walz clip as well. They don't seem to realize that like you don't get to dictate federal policy like trade. You don't get to dictate immigration. How about you handle the schools? How about you stop advocating on behalf of giving all your money to the federal government, except when the federal government is not the one you want? How about that? These are Democrat mayors getting a little lesson in the United States Constitution. First, you're going to hear, I think this is Representative Palmer. He's discussing, hey, do you know what the U.S. Constitution is? Did you swear allegiance to it? And then brings out the most important piece, the idea that there is this supremacy, which should be used very lightly and should only be in the narrow spectrum that the U.S. Constitution is telling the federal government it can operate within. This is a good little lesson for them. Then I got a comedian to be able to kind of lighten it up. Here we go.
Mr. Adams, did you swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States?
Yes, I do.
How about you, Mayor Johnson?
Yes, sir, I did.
How about you, the other Mayor Johnson?
Yeah, the Constitution of the United States as well as the Constitution of Illinois.
Okay, and Mayor,
Yes.
You did. Are you familiar with the Supremacy Clause? Any of you?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. Then under the Supremacy Clause, you understand that the laws of the United States take precedent over the laws of Colorado, over the laws of Illinois, over the laws of Massachusetts, and your cities. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir, I do.
But when you declared your cities sanctuary cities, you did so illegally. Do you understand that?
Respectfully, sir, I would disagree with that. We follow
You're
every
disagreeing
federal
with
law.
the law. It's against the law to give sanctuary to people who have committed felonies, and it's a felony to cross the border illegally. You gave sanctuary to people who are here illegally. You violated your oath to uphold the Constitution because of the Supremacy Clause. The laws of the United States take preference. And
I love it when somebody like runs out ahead of their skis. We talk about this idea that when you're speaking extemporaneously, and I do this every single day. I used to tell people, including my buddy Steve Friend, who you can find on the AMRAD podcast next. I used to tell him that I didn't know what I was going to say when someone asked me a question or when I started speaking. Most of the time, I have no idea what's going to come out next. I really don't. I trust that the Holy Spirit's going to put it there, and I also trust that my brain is going to build that bridge from where I want to go to from where I am. And so, kind of like the movie X-Men, where the guy Magneto, he's the villain, and he starts walking and he starts commanding like pieces of steel and scrap metal and stuff to create a bridge, and he just walks across it. It builds it right in front of him. He doesn't know, but every time he steps, there's something there by the time his foot gets down. That's the way I talk. This guy just outran his own bridge. He just fell off the bridge because he couldn't see. What he wanted to say was that the U.S. Constitution takes precedence. But anyway, he tried. Good enough. He doesn't have to be that solid. All you got to do is actively state something very obvious. The federal government does, in fact, have a mission. And if you are at the state level and you are trying to usurp that mission, you're the problem. And if you're not doing the mission that you actually have, which is to tend to your constituency within your own purview, you're the problem. Maybe that's why these people are so out of hand. Like, they don't have organization. They don't understand that there is, in fact, a role. They want these roles upside down. They're flipping things all over the place. So they want the federal government to handle local problems, and they want the local government to handle federal problems. This is not functional. It's dysfunctional. It's exactly what it is designed to do. And it creates what Shermichael said earlier on. He said it's chaos. They're in chaos, and they're politically irrelevant. If you are not a cohesive, coherent movement, then you cannot get any traction. And Democrats are going to be in that space. And I don't mind giving them this tip because I actually do want to see them be functional. Let them argue articulately for the things that actually matter and be able to push back against some of the bad ideas and maintain civil liberties in the process. That'd be fantastic. Why would we not want that? A functional opposition is good. Having someone come to you and say, hey, man, you haven't thought this all the way through. Have you considered these problems? And you go, oh, shoot, no, I didn't. Just like your parent coming to you and saying, listen, like, you know, I love that you're building a fort. And I think it's very cool that you're spending your time being industrious and outdoors. But you're about to drop a 60-pound pallet on your head. That's made out of oak. That's harder than your head. And it's going to drop with some velocity. You don't want that. And you go, oh, that's good. Because you're 7 and you're learning things. Oh, I don't want a pallet on my head. That would be bad. Yeah, you're right. I don't want rusty nails stabbing into my back. Having somebody give you like a voice of reason is not bad. I did find a comedian who had a kind of a hot take on this, which is pretty funny. She's talking about suddenly Democrats are now upset and they want to get guns. So, you know, this is how that goes. And they also want to defund the police and other things. Here's a stab at female law enforcement just for fun.
I've seen these liberals saying how they're going to get guns now because they don't feel safe in MAGA country. Good luck, first of all, getting guns in all the cities where you took away gun rights. Have fun with that. I'm kind of glad that they can't, because a liberal with a gun just sounds like a terrible idea. A liberal with a gun is like a female cop. Somebody's getting shot and that it's not going to be the right person.
Yikes. Okay, look, we're allowed to say that because we can say things that are funny. And by the way, I want our liberals to also learn how to use guns. But the more that they use guns, the more they're going to get more like me, which means they're going to be more interested in their freedom, and they're going to be more interested in preserving their own liberties instead of voting against their liberties. This is actually not a bad thing. Could be far worse. How about that for a segue? You ready? We're going to reach out and say thanks to our friends over at Patriot Mobile. We won the election. We're still fighting for reason and rationality, trying to restore the great nation. We're trying to do the things that we want. It's time to take a stand. You can do so with Patriot Mobile. They're leading the charge. They will sell to anybody, but they will probably sell mostly to you because they're a Christian conservative wireless provider, and they're giving you an opportunity to vote with your wallet. It's patriotmobile.com/KSS if you want to go and get our deal, get a free month there. It's not just about providing exceptional cell phone service. It's about a call to action, defending your rights and your freedoms, things that we talk about here all the time. With Patriot Mobile, you're going to get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all 3 of the major networks. If you do have cell phone service today, you can get cell phone service with Patriot Mobile. They have a coverage guarantee, but the difference is every dollar you spend is going to support the First Amendment, to have, you know, jokes about female law enforcement if you want, to support the Second Amendment, like everybody should be able to have a gun if they want it. Welcome to America. The sanctity of life, our veterans, our first responders, things that matter to us. Switching is easy. Keep your number, keep your phone, or ditch them both. Ditch either one, whatever you like. It's 100% US-based customer service. Go to patriotmobile.com/KSS, or you can see on the number on the screen right there. It's 972-PATRIOT. If you want to call them up, mention that promo code KSS, Kilo Sierra Sierra. If you want to get a free month of service, you can switch today and defend freedom with every call you make. There is a link in the show description if you guys ever forget where to find it. Our sponsors of the day are always listed right there. Very easy for you to pull them up. Listen, How about full crazy? How about people that are using their right to free speech and not doing it in a great way and saying things that discredit themselves? There is nothing goofier than listening to an unhinged, old, angry black lady who has basically embodied the chaos. We've gone from JoJo, who's relatively young, to now Maxine Waters, who is completely off her rocker. Let her talk. I mean, she's great in so much as she's great comedy. She's not effective. She's not bringing anything of value. And she also referred to Elon Musk as having a high-tech ass. Now, I'm not sure if Elon is doing ass implants just yet, but I do like it when people say funny things out loud and they do it on camera so that I can play it for you. Enjoy. This is leadership in California's Democrat Party. You know, the same people that have basically bankrupted that state and made it a homeless haven when it used to be a paradise. Maybe the best place in America, 50s and 60s. It was beautiful. It was shockingly pretty and really, really cool. It was even cool when I was a little kid. Not so much anymore.
Turned it over to him. And we don't know everything that Elon Musk has done with his high technology ass. We don't know what he's being accused of by some as it may relate to the election. But we're not going to give up in investigating and finding.
They're not going to give up. They're not going to give up. What is she talking about? She's talking about they want to make sure they stop Doge. They do not want Doge to be able to go and find any of the corruption or any of the weird places that we are sending foreign aid. And so that brings us to the Supreme Court decision slapping down Donald Trump's bid to admonish a judge over foreign aid freeze for now. And a divided Supreme Court means a 5-4 decision. The Supreme Court rebuffed the Donald Trump administration petition Wednesday to rebuke a federal judge who gave the White House until last week to unfreeze roughly $2 billion in overseas aid, acknowledging that this deadline has already passed. The High Court called on the D.C. judge Amir Ali. This is a Canadian-born Muslim guy who came and naturalized the U.S. and is now sitting in the D.C. Circuit of Appeals. That's pretty wild. The High Court said he needs to clarify his order and show due regard for the feasibility of any follow-up deadlines that he imposes. Kind of interesting. It makes you wonder, are they telling him that he's supposed to be able to say how he's going to make it happen? Because I don't know how you're going to make that happen if you're a judge. This takes us back to, I want to say it was Andrew Jackson. It was like sort of like, yeah, the court has spoken. Now come and make me do it. It reminds me of being a kid. Again, not only did we build forts, but what was the old thing you used to say when somebody would make an illogical claim? Hey, we're going to do this thing. Yeah, you and what army? Under what circumstances did the federal judge, like the only way that the system works is if we all agree that the federal court has the ability to do it. And Judge Alito, who did an dissenting opinion, and I think it's very useful to read some of these things. Alito, who sided with Justice Thomas, Justice Gorsuch, and Justice Kavanaugh. So the only people that made sense, this is the 4 part of the 5-4. Look, this is our system. Our system is imperfect and it is broken because it is made of humans. But we saw people that would otherwise theoretically be conservative, allegedly, Coney Barrett, side with the rest of the women on the court. I saw a funny parody, by the way, that's out on social media of this dissenting opinion. It's not real, but it read like something I wanted to read in a judicial piece. Let me just kind of do this. Here's what Justice Alito had to say. Does a single district court judge who likely lacks jurisdiction have the unchecked power to compel the government of the United States to pay out and probably lose forever $2 billion in taxpayer dollars? Sorry, 2 billion taxpayer dollars. He said it cleaner than I did. The answer to that question should be an emphatic no. This is coming from supremecourt.gov. This is not something made up. This is a very harsh rebuke, by the way. This is a very clear statement that all rational people think. The answer to that question should be an emphatic no, but the majority of this court apparently thinks otherwise. He states his last sentence in the opening paragraph, I am stunned. Yeah, we're all stunned that a district court judge would be able to tell the United States government that it has to give over $2 billion to not America. This is what happens when you turn things upside down. And it's really wild that we don't have any requirements that a district court judge actually be, I guess he's a naturalized American, but doesn't that seem problematic to anybody else? That you came from a different tradition, that you grew up in a different place, and then now you're going to make laws that are going to put impositions on the American president who must be a U.S. citizen? under the Constitution? I can't think that anybody ever fathomed this. We did think that when they signed the Constitution, if you go back to the 1790s, a lot of people were coming here new. A lot of places were not, people were not born and they were not from America, multi-generational. And that's not a big deal. Today it is. We are a well-established country and we probably need to update some of this stuff. He actually goes on in his first paragraph and does a recapitalization to explain this court case for those of us who have not been paying attention as much. In capsule form, here's what happened. The respondents are a group of American businesses and nonprofits that receive foreign assistance funds from the State Department and from the United States Agency for International Development. They brought a lawsuit and claimed that the current administration's temporary pause on foreign assistance payments is unlawful. On February 13th of 2025, the district court issued a temporary restraining order requiring the government to halt its funding pause. So when they put the TRO in, the Trump administration put down the pause, and the court says we must pause the pause, just so you understand how goofy the language is on this. It's based on a decision that on the finding that the respondents are likely to succeed in showing that the U.S. government violated the Administrative Procedures Act. It's been a while since we visited the EPA, hasn't it? We used to touch it all the time. The EPA is one of the biggest, nastiest things. It is a rollback. It is vestigial at this point. It is something that is so baked in. This is the progression of evil for our country. When you started divesting powers that are administered under the Constitution, that are supposed to be in the legislative branch, and putting them under the executive, and particularly to the unelected bureaucrats that sit in the executive that run things. The Administrative Procedures Act basically says Congress gives wide mandates, they give wide information and say, this is what we'd like you to accomplish. You figure out how to do it. And then the agency, under the EPA, is going to decide how to deal with the funding to accomplish the mission, how to go out there and do the job that Congress said without all the specifics. Congress is required to actually lay this stuff out, but they had basically shirked their responsibility under the EPA. The turbocharged version of this was under the Chevron deference, which was to say that once they did that, they were default right. That tie goes to the government should conflict arise. That was removed last year. So we had a little win there. So we had a rollback of about 80 years back to the original EPA, which is still problematic. We got a problem there. We can't be doing this. So let's go to the topic at hand, which is the $20 billion. Let me give you the refresher. This is Lee Zeldin in his first day or two in office as the administrator of the EPA. That's the top guy at the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. And so Environmental Protection Administration? I can't remember if it must be an administration. EPA, he's running the EPA and he's talking about a Project Veritas video. Look, Project Veritas didn't do all garbage. Some of the stuff they did was good. This is one of the things, revealing somebody talking about $20 billion being sequestered away from the federal government so that Donald Trump's administration could not keep track of it. We're getting to the bottom of what the story looks like. I got a story from Catholic Vote that kind of lays it all out, but we're going to do the lead up to it with these different news stories. Here's Lee Zeldin talking about it. We've already played this before, but track in on it, okay?
Hi, this is EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. One of my very top priorities at EPA is to be an excellent steward of your hard-earned tax dollars. There will be zero tolerance of any waste and abuse. An extremely disturbing video circulated 2 months ago featuring a Biden EPA political appointee talking about how they were tossing gold bars off the Titanic, rushing to get billions of your tax dollars out the door before Inauguration Day. The gold bars were tax dollars, and tossing them off the Titanic meant the Biden administration knew they were wasting it. Following this revelation, during my meetings with members of Congress, I made a very important commitment to them and to the American people, which I reiterated at my confirmation hearing that if confirmed, I would immediately get a full accounting.
Okay, straightforward stuff, right? The Biden administration wanted to sequester these things. They put them into a private entity in a bank, which I believe was a Citibank asset. They decided to put them outside of the reach of the EPA on purpose. They wanted to take U.S. taxpayer dollars, move them outside of the purview of the government so that they could already be distributed to the people that needed to have them, according to the Biden administration. Here he is on Fox News talking about this a little further.
He's held in joining us now as we watch this, and he's also digging into waste at the EPA. How's that going so far?
Oh, we're crushing it. We have a great team. Big development yesterday. It was a couple months ago. There was this video that came out of a Biden EPA political appointee talking about how they were tossing gold bars off the Titanic. says it multiple times in the video, rushing to get billions of dollars out the door before Inauguration Day. Well, members of Congress were really concerned about that. So as I'm going through the confirmation process, they said, if confirmed, will you commit to making this a top priority to find those gold bars? Came in. I was just confirmed a couple of weeks ago. We found them. They were at a bank parked just outside of government. $20 billion was sent there. And a little oversight, 8 entities would be receiving all $20 billion. And they would be distributing all of these funds without EPA knowing everything that we need to do our job to provide accountability to Congress, the media, and to the public.
All right, so they were going to go out there and find out where it was, and here he is talking about what they did. What they did is they found that this money was handed out in the form of 8 NGOs. That's why I actually had today's thumbnail. If you saw it today, here, let me throw it up on the screen for a second. They had 8 brand new NGOs, all run by former Democrats, or at least most of them were. And the dollars were handed out to these groups, and he's going to explain that on another Fox News hit here about kind of how it was. One of them was run by Stacey Abrams. What they did is they created a thing that was called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And they tossed this money out so that it could be immediately picked up by these NGOs run by former Democrats or former Democrat officials. They're still Democrats, I'm sure. As fast as possible. Billions of dollars at a time. This is one small example why we do need Elon Musk's high-tech ass looking for this stuff, because nobody has been looking at this before. Nobody has been caring enough to go find it. It's just a sunk cost idea that the federal government is going to waste our money and there's nothing we can do about it. That's been basically the default position for a very long time. And what Trump has been doing as in upsetting these people is he's finally questioning. It's like, hey, why do we lose all this money? Why do we just write it off like we have to give $8 million into transgender research into, mice and injecting them with hormones to see how they behave? Why do we do this? What are we doing here? Why don't we just start asking reasonable questions? The same kind of reasonable questions we see Rand Paul ask. Again, it is the reason why you should have a functional opposition party, why Democrats shouldn't be a bunch of loonies, why they should be looking at it and saying, okay, look, we don't want to waste money either. Kind of like what Elise Slotkin said in her response to the State of the Union. All right, here is the last little hit here kind of explaining this.
All of this money was put up front. It wasn't like there was performance. You show performance, then you ask for the next tranche. It was, here's $20 billion. And it was going to their friends on the left, as opposed to making sure that the money is going directly towards the purpose that you allegedly said this money was needed for in the first place. If you care about clean air, land, and water, if you think there's some community that's been left behind, then why aren't you spending the dollar actually remediating that issue instead of paying off your friend?
Okay, so the Biden administration used so-called climate equity to justify handouts of billions of dollars to their far-left friends. This is Zeldin talking to the Free Press. He said, it is my utmost priority to get a handle on every dollar that went out the door in this scheme and once again restore oversight and accountability to these funds. This was a slush fund. He says the rush job operation is riddled with conflicts of interest and corruption. Former President Joe Biden founded the $27 billion fund overseen by the EPA in the spring of 2023. 2 of the 8 nonprofits received money right before Donald Trump's inauguration. This is after the election, but before the inauguration, like out the door, they were kicking this stuff out. And they were formed shortly after Biden announced the fund. In other words, these NGOs appear to have been created specifically to receive money that he created in this fund. This is what real corruption looks like. This is truly evil stuff. It is really not acceptable. And so in the meantime, you've got a couple of different priorities that are happening at the same time. I saw this story and I think it's interesting because some of the money that was being sent out from the U.S. aid, which was just told that they had to release it, whether it was part of that $2 billion or whether it's some of the other aid that was frozen, you've got Donald Trump saying that Hamas basically has no chance to exist if they do not follow through with what he just said. He said, you basically better release all of our hostages now, direct quote, release all of the hostages now, not later. This is Hamas, Israeli terrorists, hostages rather. He says, release them now, not later, and quote, immediately return all of the dead bodies of the people you murdered or it is over for you. But at the same time, you've got people suing to be able to get the Trump administration to give money to groups that are feeding into Hamas. So you could see that this problem it's not like simple. It's not like a black and white, like this is what's happening left and right. This is like many, many layers of corruption. They're all woven together. And so they're starting to kind of like unravel this, and it's causing all kinds of chaos. That's by design, I have to imagine. And this is why I don't think this is a bad headline. I don't think this is a bad situation. This story from ABC says that the Trump administration has been hit with over 100 lawsuits since inauguration. I want to think about that for a second. if you have a party that is in disarray, that can't agree that a man is a man, a woman is a woman, and what that means. If you have a party that is upset and doesn't understand that local government should have local priorities and that federal government should have federal priorities and that people should stay in their own lanes and do the things that they're going to have. Is it really so wrong to tie up the many tens of millions of dollars in lawfare that was going to come either way in hundreds of lawsuits by signing back-to-back executive orders? Because for a lot of time, what we find out is that we see people that are essentially they're living this experience of tracking the most shiny object. Let me see if this slide actually works. There it is. Right? People are used to tracking the shiny object. They're used to running around after the thing that they're pointed at, and they ignore the source of the problem. For once, it appears that Donald Trump is actually doing this to the other side, because it seems like Republicans, it seems like people are following the shiniest thing. You were upset about binders. You want to know where the Epstein files are. You're chasing the dot on the floor. I put a tweet out the other day, and it was real simple. It said, are you chasing the dot or are you watching the hand? If you've got 100 lawsuits filed against you, you got a lot of people that are chasing the dot. For those of you that are listening to me and you're not seeing the visual that is sitting off to my left, the visual is that there is a cat chasing the dot on the floor from a laser pointer. It is people that are losing their mind. And let me show you what it looks like when you get people that are so upset about Elon Musk and his high-tech ass, and the people that are going out there and they're going to be very upset about the things that Donald Trump says. No matter what he says, he can't make them happy. He said this as well. Check out this little fun video that I found. I think this is going to be the right one, that shows what happens when these people get mobilized. They're just unhinged, and that's fine. They're like not functional. Again, it's not good for the party. It's actually not good for America, but at least they're not going to be effective. You tell me who this person's mind, who's this guy changing? Is he getting anybody that drives by to go like, oh yeah, no, I actually agree. Elon Musk is a real fascist. This is the problem. Check these crazies out. This is Nick Sorter reporting and walking on a street next to a bunch of people that are protesting against a guy who doesn't work for the government. And he's like the richest person in the world. Apparently they can get upset about that.
How's your day going? Throw up the fucking salute if you guys are really about it, huh? If you guys are fucking Elon's boys, you fucking fascist cowards.
Just show
Show your face, bud. Show your face.
Do we want to talk about how small your penis is today? I really didn't want to talk about the size of how tiny your dick is.
I mean, you'd never see it. Cruella de Vil, come on. You brought the kids out here today.
Because I'm not going to let them grow up to be fascists like you.
Yeah, what makes me a fascist?
Probably your love for fascism.
Really?
You guys, just so you know.
At least this is consistent. I don't want to play a lot more of this. Maybe I'll throw it back up on Twitter. I retweeted this if you guys want to find it. It's at Kyle Seraphin over on X. You can see that. I'll try to post it on True Social as well. This is how you end up with the I'm retarded signs at the State of the Union. I kid you not. Like, this woman actually did a pretty good reflexive definition. It's like, why am I fascist? Probably because you love fascism. It's like, what makes a woman? Oh, well, someone who thinks they're a woman. It's like, at least they're consistent on that, right? And she is dressed like Cruella de Vil. If you've never seen this clip, or if you haven't seen it previously, it's worth seeing. She's dressed in black and white. She's got her hair. Half of it is like blonde and white. The other half is black. Apparently, she's a mom, by the way. She brought her kids out to this. That should be child abuse. What are you doing, people? What are you doing when you've lost the thread so much that you're taking your kids and screaming about some other man's penis and you're showing them that's your example of what mom looks like? It's not functional, but it's not surprising because these people have been off the hinge for a while. This is a little video that I remember playing at the time. We're 2 days out from the State of the Union. It was 2 days ago. This was the last one. This is the video montage of how excited people were about Joe Biden. Remember the guy that they had to remove because he was too mentally insolvent to continue? This is why these people think this way. They've been gaslit to the point where they don't make any sense anymore. They are not functional opposition, and their media is not functional. They can't handle it. Look at this. This is Joe Biden being covered as being both fiery and on point. You remember the guy that dropped out because he didn't know what the hell was going on in the world? Here he is.
Biden's fiery State of the Union address.
I'm here tonight to show what I believe is the way forward.
He was absolutely on fire.
Joe Biden was on fire.
You were on fire.
You brought that Irish fire tonight.
Fired us all up.
Biden was on fire.
At the top of his game.
He was on fire.
Smoking. He was on fire.
Robust and clear.
Joining us so late is Latoya Beasley. Emboldening others to do what they wish. Big landlords who use antitrust law, who break antitrust laws to make sure everyone has a fair shot. Our GTP is up. I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. Guaranteed. guarantee the right to ABF so builders can get federally financing. Federal love is over $1 trillion. $1 million. Millions of families can get, they need to go to work watching auto jobs in the future to instigate the...
Yeah, we know he was completely out of it. This is what happened. This is the guy that you had represent your party. So like you're not going to make any sense. He can't make any sense. He can't even get through a sentence. I do remember that. I kind of missed the fun stuff because it is fun to play those things back and go like, oh, okay. Okay, let me give you two contrast. Here is Eric Swalwell. He was being interviewed right after the State of the Union. Actually, we're going to do a couple of contrasts in a row, including the voice of reason coming out of there, which is Chuck Schumer of all places. Yeah, that's how bad they're at right now. This is how bad things have gotten, where Chuck Schumer is starting to make a little bit of sense. Eric Swalwell, he says, if you think that Donald Trump is winning, then go to the effing grocery store. Not my words.
What do you say to Americans who voted for Trump because they wanted lower prices, but now they've only seen him start trade wars with our allies?
If you wanted lower prices and you were promised that on day one, well, the stock market is crashing and prices are rising. So, this guy's gone to the Super Bowl, he's gone to the Daytona 500, he's gone to a UFC fight. You should go to the fucking supermarket and look at what people are spending to feed themselves.
Such decorum, so much respect for the office. That's what we really love. How about this? This is my favorite. This is Jasmine Crockett, one of the classiest people in Congress, saying she don't want any of that nonsense and BS. Awesome. This is the kind of people that they're putting in office. This is why they're in disarray. And like they don't realize that this is not a selling point. Nobody wants this.
Listen, he up there, he's spewing all kinds of nonsense and bullshit. Let me just be real. And we weren't gonna sit for that shit. We wouldn't. We showed up. And if he had some sense, then maybe we would have been about that life. But y'all know he ain't got no sense. So please give some love. This took a little bit of coordinating to do for sure. We got some cool shirts. And then they're going to go on to that. That's not the way she actually talks. Here, that's what they're up against. This is the alternative. You could have someone like Rand Paul who's saying things that they don't like. But if you listen to these two voices, you hear Swalwell saying his piece, you hear Jasmine Crockett saying her piece, then you got this guy. Who's going to win this discussion where rationality is supposed to win out?
We talked about precious resources, and we say, well, gosh, we can't study autism or any, we're done with vaccines. The problem with that is there is a great deal of vaccine hesitancy, and there does need to be convincing. It doesn't mean we need 99% of the NIH budget on autism and vaccines, but certainly I think we have room to have another study to try to convince those who are hesitant. We ought to look at populations of people who take no vaccines, the Amish and others, and try to compare them in a scientific way to those who do and see if we can learn something from that. But one way to have more precious resources directed towards good science is to get rid of the frivolous studies. William Proxmire started talking about this in the 70s. I've been talking about this for a dozen years. This is from the NIH, 2.1 million studying whether or not when you're at the Luby's cafeteria.
So he said there's bad science out there. He gives historical precedent. And then he says, why don't we do scientific things like look at populations that generally don't have vaccines in them? Like, this is how science is done. You go, oh, is there like a tribe of people that haven't done this thing? Let's go study them versus the people that have done this thing. You got a control group. You got a variable. Let's go and do an analysis. Let's see what the outcomes are. How is that even controversial at all? It's controversial because you've got people saying just non-factual things. By the way, the voices of reason actually start off that way. This is my favorite piece. I got Jasmine Crockett, which is something, this is the real Jasmine Crockett. You guys just heard that. Somebody in the chat said, hey, can I get a translator for what that lady has to say? She didn't used to sound like that. This is a one-sided. When you guys hear audio that's kind of funky, the problem is the people who recorded this did this in a left channel and a right channel. So they did stereo microphones where one side is picking up on the left, one side's on the right. So if you're listening on your phone, you're going to get kind of like a skewed take on it. If you're listening on speakers, it's no problem. But this is a man doing an interview with Jasmine Crockett before she went to Washington and became the hood rat, dollar store, Cardi B nonsense kind of fake, where she put on that persona. This is what she actually sounds like in real life. This is actual Jasmine Crockett.
Jasmine Crockett, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. You're a state representative, and now you are running for Congress. Why is that, and what are your priorities?
Absolutely. First of all, it's good to see you in the new year. No one could have told me that when I went down to Austin, now it looks like a little bit over a year ago, that I would be running for Congress. Sounding. It's just not what my plan was. But what I've always decided is that I would step up when there was a need.
Right.
And so I fully anticipated that.
And so she fully anticipated that somebody was going to come to her and say, you know what really polls well? You know what we really need? We need somebody who's trashy, ghetto, has really long fingernails, has a crappy weave, and just talks like a bunch of sassy nonsense. Can you be a really sassy black woman? You're an actress. You're not a good one, but an actress. So that's pretty wild. And they must be getting advice to do this stuff. I don't know who's advising it. I got one more for you. This one, I just couldn't help it. Yesterday, we showed you the ambiguously gay duo. We showed you Chris Morey, that's his name, and Harry Sisson, and they were talking about how fresh and fly they were. Okay? They were pretty excited about it. Apparently, they let these idiots go out and interview people, like Congress people, because they have that kind of access. When you have that kind of access, it's usually for a reason, just so you guys know. Like, I couldn't go and do this interview, but he can. And now you're going to see some weird, like, almost pedophilic roughhousing, where Cory Booker is, like, going to touch this kid, which is weird. It's just weird to watch. And then you hear them use terms like muzzle velocity. I hear Chris Morey say this in a second, so you're going to hear that. I don't think he's ever shot a gun. As far as I can tell, they hate guns. They're scared of guns. So they're using these terms that don't have any meaning. They've divorced the meaning in the same way that we've seen agencies divorced from their mission. They're just detached. They're just saying things that have no effect. And then there's like a tickle fest. And I couldn't help but show it because I saw it. Now you have to see it too.
People feel angry, and they feel angry into the void. They feel like no one's hearing their anger.
Yes.
And it's frustrating. You sat there for 2 hours. I'm tired. I assume you're tired.
No, you know what's so funny is
he said, I'm not tired. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
I am charged up.
I like that.
Yeah, seriously, I'm charged up.
I like
that. This guy should not. They want to overwhelm you. They want to paralyze
that's the goal.
you. They want to overwhelm you, paralyze you, and make you feel like you
It's
can't.
chaos. Make it feel, that's the entire goal. Like I talk consistently about muzzle velocity, like lying. Chaos is the point, so you feel like you have no control.
Their leaders have literally said in his cabinet, we want to traumatize them. Traumatize you. So that you can't fight back. But I know our history.
That's right.
We have literally said, Fannie Lou, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
That's right.
Yeah. Follow the laser pointer, clowns. Or just wake up and start being functional and actually help everything out. The Tickle Fest was what I wanted to show you guys. And if you didn't see it, go to the end of the show today and watch it. It is really, really gross. I don't know why that grown man is touching that youngish looking boy who's in his like early 20s. He's like touching him. And the other guy's beating on his chest. Very strange. Again, yeah, the Trump administration's got you right where they want you. They're having you chase the dot on the ground. You're just chasing. You can't figure out how to get out of your own way. That's your own problem. It's not my problem. I know that we're getting some of the things that we voted for. Not all of them. We're not going to win every time. But we are getting some of the things we voted for. And what we're also seeing is a little bit of accountability as long as the damn courts step in and do what they're supposed to do. And as long as the Trump administration takes those interpretations the same way the Biden administration did, which is to say sometimes, we don't agree with you. Like, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. You're not going to do anything because you're a court, because you're a judge who's from Canada, who's a Muslim guy in Washington, D.C., and you don't get to tell us what we're going to do with foreign aid or not. Come in and force it if you like. I think that's the right way to do it. All right, that's the program for today. I've got some more fun stuff to be able to play tomorrow. I've got Canadians asking for money. I've got Tim Walz crying about Elizabeth Warren being called Pocahontas, some other kind of funny stuff. I have a Chuck Schumer thing for you tomorrow as well, showing that he's actually the rational voice. We'll just hold on to it and we'll do it again tomorrow. No big deal. If you guys are new to the program, thanks so much for joining us. We do really appreciate it. Make sure you're supporting us by giving us a like wherever you're listening. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Rumble, if you are doing it on X, give the like. Share it, subscribe wherever you can, turn the notifications on if you would. Appreciate that. If you want to support the channel directly, you can go to kyleseraphin.com. That is our locals community where I put out all the articles that we reference. Sometimes we put out the videos you guys want to see over there, and you can interact with folks that are either in the chat after the fact or other people who are watching the show. And then lastly, if you're watching this and you don't like pop-up ads, just simply go over to Spotify. It's a free app to download. It's free to download it there, and the only ads are the 3 that I'm going to read. I never do more than 3 in our show, so check those out. You can share it much more easily, and that can be found at KyleSeraphinShow.com. KyleSeraphinShow.com. Have a great Thursday. I've got a really good edit coming up. We're going to talk to Dr. Etan Heim, so I'm working on that today. That's going to be our Sunday sit down. You're going to hear the doctor who overcame the transgender nonsense in Texas, helped get the law passed, and then his victorious story of being removed from federal prosecution after $2 million worth of legal defense. Pretty intense stuff. He's an awesome communicator, and he's a really, really cool guy, and he's a gun guy. So you guys get ready for that. We'll put out a teaser probably tomorrow. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel for all that. Have a great day. God bless you. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.